I'm Mitchell Johnston with Dead End Game Calls, and on this week's Smart Tips and Tricks, we're talking all about the turkey. All right, so this is 3 calls that I would take with me every time I go to the woods. These calls will definitely be in my turkey vest, and it's something that you as a turkey hunter, experienced or non-experienced, definitely need to have in your bag of arsenal and your bag of tricks. First would be a mouth call. Second would be a glass call. And third would be a box call. I'm not going to the woods without them. For the first call out of my bag of tricks would be my glass call. Glass calls are definitely one of the things that you're going to need on a windy day. They've got a high frequency. They could cut through the wind. But it's one of those calls that you could teach someone to run in about 15 to 30 seconds. I can have you doing a basic yelp and a basic cut or a cluck on a pot call, and I'm talking about really fast. So on a glass call, we're going to take that call and we're going to literally draw small ovals on that call to produce a basic yelp. You're going to angle the striker slightly away from your body, and then I'm going to draw an oval. Now here's one of the most important things to remember when you're yelping on a glass call. You never take the striker, the tip of the striker, off the surface of the glass. It constantly stays on the surface of that glass call. Here's what I see people do. See how I'm taking the striker off the surface? It does not complete your yelp. To complete a yelp, it stays on the surface of the call at all times. Now, let's take that. Let's go into a cluck. You take your striker, angled slightly away from you, and all you're going to do is just pop that striker. I use my pointer finger and I just pop that striker. I could take that cluck and I can turn it into a cut. Make it a little sharper, a little harder down pressure. Then throw in those yelps. For that added little bit of realism. So a yelp of a wild turkey is basic vocalization. So when she's yelping at another turkey, there's actually assembly yelp, there's an excited yelp, and there's a plain yelp. When she's excited yelping, she's riled up, man. She's excited. It's kind of like if my wife were to be going through through Walmart or something, or she gets upset at me, or maybe she gets excited about something. Well, that's what a hen does. Way she changes her tone, she adds that cutting into it, she adds that yelping into it, and it becomes more aggressive. But now a plain yelp, she's content. She's feeding, nothing's bothering her. She just wanted to make sure all the other turkeys are around her, so she's soft yelping a little bit, and she's content. She's happy to be where she's at. No predators. She's good to go. She's feeding a little bit. She may add a little cluck and purr in there, and she's just in a harmony. She's good right where she's at. But then you get to that assembly yelp. So she's lost her poults. Maybe she's lost her flock. Something's broke her up. Maybe a coyote's run through the flock of turkeys and busted that flock up. So she's going to start assembly yelping. So she's going to yelp, 20, 30 times, pause, yelp 5 or 6 times, pause, yelp 20 more times, or whatever her cadence might be. But she's listening for a response. She's pleading for those other turkeys to get back together. I used an example of my wife. If my kids were to get lost from me or get lost from my wife in a store, my son's name's Mason. Mason, hey Mason, I need you to come back over here. Well, if he didn't respond, she might get a little louder. I might get a little louder. Hey Mason, I need you over here. Mason, you need to come over here for me. Hey Mason, and then when they get out of sight and you don't have a clue where your kids are at, hey Mason, 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 hey, anybody see me? Well, a turkey's doing the exact same thing. They start out maybe with a plain yelp. They don't get a response. They get a little more excited. They don't get a response. And then they kick into that high gear of that assembly yelp. And man, it's on like Donkey Kong. I'm talking about she is yelping like crazy. And that's what an assembly yelp is. She's trying to gather her flock back up. Well, the second call that I'd take to the woods with me and never fails is a box call. It's simply used by friction, or it's done by friction. So you've got a paddle and you've got the actual box itself. So you're literally taking this paddle and you're sliding it across the box call to produce the sound. And it goes back to the same thing with that glass call with the striker and the glass. You never want to take the paddle off the actual box of the call. So when you're sliding that across, that paddle never leaves the surface of the call. So now to yelp, I showed you that. It's literally sliding it across, and then you can add cutting in there as well. A lot of people actually lay their thumb on top of the call and then they just tap the call. So a box call is very advantageous, user-friendly, and can make a big difference in the woods. All right, the third call that I do not go to the woods without in the spring or the fall is a mouth diaphragm call. Now let me tell you about a mouth diaphragm call. No doubt it is the hardest call to learn how to use. So I didn't have anybody to teach me how to use a mouth call. The horseshoe goes out, the cut goes up, all that stuff, the dynamics of how a mouth call works. So if I were to take my tongue, let's say my hand is my tongue, and my end of my fingertips right there is going to be the tip of my tongue. I would lay the tip of my tongue at the bottom of my teeth. The bridge or the ridge of my tongue would go up to hold that mouth call in place, and that I needed to blow air across that to make a sound. It sounds something like this. Now when I get that sound coming out of that mouth call, and I can get it constantly, so I want a constant airflow out of that call. Then it's simply dropping my jaw just like I talk normally, and I can start to produce a yelp. So I've got the constant airflow, constant pressure, and then all of a sudden I get that constant sound. I drop my jaw, and as I speed that up, it turns into a yelp. So there you have the basic yelp of a turkey on a diaphragm call. Well guys, that's it for this week's episode. I hope something we've said or done here today will help you to be a better hunter and be a better turkey hunter in the future. So if you've learned something this week, like and subscribe, and tune in next time for next week's episode.